All right. All right. So welcome, everyone. My name is Shalini Ramachandran. I'm the Reference and Instruction Librarian for STEM at Loyola Marymount University, LMU for short, in Los Angeles, California. My co-presenter today is Nicole Murph, who is a Reference and Instruction Librarian, also at LMU. Nicole is currently presenting at another conference, but will join me for the second half of this presentation. And our presentation is Exploring Generative Artificial Intelligence, Enhancing Information Literacy in College Libraries. So the focus of our presentation is on the, so these are some of the things we'll cover: importance of AI literacy for students, a case study from a series of ChatGPT workshops that we offered to undergraduate students in spring 2024, the workshop setting and learning outcomes, the three main components of the workshop, ChatGPT under the hood, ethical considerations, and writing effective ChatGPT prompts, and lastly, lessons learned and recommendations. So artificial intelligence, or AI for short, is not an entirely new technology, but it has become ubiquitous throughout every aspect of our lives in recent years. As instruction librarians, we feel it is important for students to develop AI literacy skills along with other more traditional information literacy skills. So some of the reasons being enhanced research capabilities, utilizing advanced tools for data analysis and content generation, critical evaluation, developing skills to assess AI-generated content for accuracy and bias, ethical awareness, it's understanding and addressing ethical issues related to AI use and deployment, informed digital citizenship, which is navigating and contributing to digital spaces responsibly, and future readiness, so staying adaptable to evolving AI technologies and innovations. So since ChatGPT was launched in 2022, generative AI tools have burgeoned in the market and are readily available for students to access. So along with other AI technologies, it's also crucial for students to be literate in generative AI. So we found this ChatGPT literacy scale by Lee and Park to be useful when we developed our workshop learning goals. So technical proficiency, understanding and fine-tuning AI, critical evaluation, assessing accuracy, completeness, and bias, communication proficiency, conversing effectively with AI, creative application, which is generating new ideas, and ethical competence, which includes addressing privacy and legal considerations. So for our case study, we focused on a series of workshops that Nicole, myself, and our other reference librarian colleague, Susan Archambault, conducted. The workshop was called AI Explorers, Discovering the Power and Pitfalls of ChatGPT. The workshop focused on the inner mechanics of ChatGPT, ethical issues with generative AI, and honing skills in prompt crafting. All right, so we conducted this workshop 4 times this past academic year, and we did so online via Zoom at Loyola Marymount University. Our target audience was undergraduate students, and we did the workshop in both 60-minute and 90-minute formats. So even though our focus was on undergraduate students, the first 2 workshops were open to all of the campus community. And we noticed that we had a significant number of staff and other faculty who participated in the workshops. So these were the learning outcomes for the workshop: recognizing how ChatGPT generates output, reflect upon the ethical challenges associated with the use of ChatGPT, and write a ChatGPT prompt using the Create framework. To ensure the workshop addressed the core principles of information literacy, we used the ACRL framework for information literacy as a guide and mapped 3 frames to our learning outcomes. So information creation as a process. So this frame emphasizes the understanding that information in any format is produced to convey a message and is shared via a selected delivery method. So as described by the ACRL framework, a disposition of learners for this frame is to seek out characteristics of information products that indicate the underlying creation process. So we therefore included a section in our workshop looking at ChatGPT under the hood. Authority is constructed and contextual. So this frame highlights that information resources reflect their creators' expertise and credibility, and that various communities may recognize different types of authority. We encourage students to critically examine the authority and credibility of ChatGPT's outputs, consider its potential biases and limitations, and reflect on the ethical implications of relying on AI-generated content in various contexts. And then searching as strategic exploration, this frame emphasizes that searching for information is often nonlinear and iterative, requiring the evaluation of a range of information sources and the mental flexibility to pursue alternate avenues as new understanding develops. So our focus here is to empower students with strategies for effective prompt engineering, enabling them to explore ChatGPT's capabilities and limitations through strategic interaction. All right, so since we identified understanding the basics of how ChatGPT works as an important aspect of AI literacy, we introduced some of the foundational concepts of AI literacy, including neural networks, deep learning, and natural language processing. We also asked students a poll question about how GPT models are trained. So 53% incorrectly thought ChatGPT is trained without human involvement. 47% correctly identified human involvement. So we introduced students to the 3 main training stages that ChatGPT and other similar models go through: generative pre-training, supervised fine-tuning, which does include human feedback, and reinforced learning, again, through human feedback. There were other aspects we covered as well, but I won't go into it in this presentation. So let's see. So under the hood again, so we conducted a pre-survey and post-survey of students' ChatGPT knowledge. So before the workshop, 24% disagreed, 38% were neutral, and 38% agreed on understanding ChatGPT. Post-workshop, 85% agreed on understanding ChatGPT, indicating increased confidence. So for another question we asked was about understanding ChatGPT's output generation. And for this, the responses increased from 33% to 44% post-workshop for correct answer. So this was only a modest increase. And so our analysis is that clarification is needed on differentiating ChatGPT's process output versus tools that search the internet for information. All right, so then our next segment was ethical considerations. So before starting the discussion on ethical considerations, students responded to both a pre-survey question and a Zoom poll. So based on the results, students in attendance had ethical concerns about the use of AI. When it comes to the various ethical concerns, students were concerned about copyright infringement, as that took the lead, followed by discrimination and bias. We observed that students may be more aware of some of the ethical considerations that are more apparent, such as copyright, compared to concerns that they cannot see immediately, such as environmental factors. And with that, this is my passing point to Nicole to further elaborate on aspects of the workshop. So Nicole, if you're here, you can jump in.
Shalini, I don't think she's here yet.
All right, so then I'll keep going. All right. Okay, so the second part of the, continuing with ethical considerations, students learned about, these are some of the things that we clarified to students, so that although ChatGPT is referenced, this, the question of ethics applies to all of AI, and ethics is an ongoing discussion in and of itself that requires depth in the substance and a thoughtful approach in implementation. We focused on the following areas: ghost work behind ChatGPT. So students learned what ghost work is. It's a term coined by anthropologist Mary Gray and computational scientist Siddharth Suri. This is the global underclass that is paid, receives no health benefits, experiences impacts, and various corporations such as Amazon, Google, Microsoft, Uber, OpenAI, name them. Any of the big corporations use ghost labor. So we showed students a case study of OpenAI's exploitation of Kenyan workers who label textual descriptions that contain sexual abuse, hate speech, and violence. And then for discrimination and bias, students learned that the large language models, or LLMs, are trained on large data sets that pull information from all over the web. Thus, the information contained could be discriminatory and have biased language. Political advertising and AI. For this, students learned the pros and cons of the advancement of AI in political campaigns. Some of the pros include small campaigns that do not have large funds can utilize AI to do activities such as outreach and analysis. AI can also help with precision campaigning. Some of the cons include AI's interaction on a granular level with constituents, that can open the door wider for a spread of disinformation and misinformation. It also raises concerns for needs for guardrails to be implemented by Congress to protect citizenry from deceptive content. Students also learned how tangled this can be when you consider the First Amendment. And for environment and AI, students learned how AI is an extractive technology that involves metals such as lithium, copper, and cobalt. The environmental impact is that mining causes soil erosion, deforestation, water pollution, and displaces local communities. And this contributes to various environmental degradations. And cloud computing also impacts the environment through the amount of energy and waste it uses. Students also learned that AI can leave a water footprint in the amount of water used to cool down the large servers. Copyright in AI. For the students, learned about AI's impact on copyright, who or what created the work, who owns the work, can AI artists copyright their own work? So we remind students that copyright is a challenging area and consistently changing. We also touched on privacy, truth and academic integrity, and datafication as well. And then after learning about the ethical considerations, students participated in a reflection activity using Padlet. Students typed in their responses. The purpose of the activity was to hear from students on what their perspective is on AI technology and the role of the university. So for the first question, students were concerned with information inaccuracy, privacy, authorship, locating accurate sources, and how the technology can take away from a person's creativity. For the second question, students felt that the university should provide guidelines on using AI technology. Currently, LMU does not have a university-wide policy. So these guidelines should allow for space for inspiration, brainstorming ideas, using AI as a study guide or a supplemental education tool. Students responded in a post-survey with the same question as the pre-survey. The change in percentages were not statistically significant, but at the same time, they were meaningful. The downtick in the disagree and uptick in neutral and agree reflect the knowledge the students gained from this workshop and made some difference in informing them and being aware. All right, so then I guess the third and final part of the workshop was writing effective ChatGPT prompts. So this began with, again, a Zoom poll to gauge students' experiences with ChatGPT. The poll was followed by a set of pre-survey questions. The findings suggest that while students recognize the utility of ChatGPT in their learning, students do not view ChatGPT as a human-like entity or feel overly reliant on ChatGPT for their learning success. All right. And then, so for the writing effective prompts aspect, we proceeded on having students focus on learning how to write using the CREATE framework, how to effectively write ChatGPT prompts. That is, the CREATE is clarity. So CREATE clearly define the task or intent of the prompt, including specific information, relevant information, so which is provide relevant details, including specific keywords and facts, the tone, audience, format, and structure. Examples, use examples in the prompt to provide context and direction in the output, avoiding ambiguity, so focus on the key information and delete unnecessary details in the prompt. Tinker is test and refine the prompt through multiple iterations, explore different input versions, and discover the best results. And finally, evaluate, which is continuously evaluate the output and adjust the prompt as needed to improve the quality. So this includes the user fact-checking the information, since ChatGPT is known to produce hallucinate throughout false or made up information. So we provided an example of creating a prompt using the CREATE framework. Afterwards, we provided time for students to create their own prompts using the CREATE framework and filling out a prompt crafting worksheet that we created. And if time allowed, we discussed the prompt crafting results as a group. And I see that Nicole is here. So Nicole, do you want to jump in for slide 15?
Yes. So thank you, Shalini. Just completed my previous presentation. Let me jump in. Can we go to the next slide?
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you. So writing effective ChatGPT prompts. So the pre and post survey results showed a significant increase in students' confidence in constructing effective prompts when using ChatGPT. The workshop revealed the invisible mediations of AI by encouraging students to engage with ChatGPT actively and, importantly, critically through prompt crafting. So students became more aware of their role in shaping the AI's output. The activity also challenged students' assumption that AI is completely autonomous, thus highlighting the relationship between human and AI technology. Next slide, please. So there are some lessons that we learned from conducting these workshops and the recommendations that we received and provided to our colleagues. So For workshop tone, faculty reported that students found the workshop's tone conflicting as we presented both the ethical considerations for using AI and ChatGPT and the guidance on how to use it effectively. So the recommendation is that for future workshops, we need to clarify the institution's position on AI use and provide a more balanced perspective on the benefits and drawbacks of these technologies. So for learning outcomes, each one can be expanded into separate workshops to allow for more in-depth exploration of these topics. This will provide students with a more comprehensive understanding of the technical aspects of ChatGPT's functioning, the ethical considerations surrounding AI, and the best practices for prompt engineering. As noted earlier, although the workshops were primarily targeted to students, a significant number of faculty and staff also participated. So at the time, this spoke to the need for AI literacy training across the entire campus community, including our staff and faculty. And it also highlighted the adaptability of the workshop content to different audiences. Next slide. So during the practice sessions, we encountered instances where ChatGPT was temporarily unavailable. So to mitigate this issue, we recommended creating screenshots ahead of time for live demos to ensure a smooth presentation, even if the platform is down. We were also relieved by later workshops that ChatGPT didn't require login access to use it. So that made things a little easier when we wanted to do demonstrations. We also recognize that the CREATE framework used in our workshop may have been too complex for some participants. We recommend exploring alternative frameworks that are simpler and more accessible to a wider audience. Next slide. So here are some of our references. We have more, but these are some of the references that we've used primarily. So for anyone who wants to refer to these sources themselves. Next slide. And so that is it. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you again, Shalini, for carrying things as I was doing the other presentation. But does the audience have any questions for us?
So to keep us on track with the time for the next presentation, I want to thank Shalini and Nicole for their very comprehensive and detailed presentations. So much to digest. We do have a few questions, but I think if you're going to be here, we can wait until after the next presentation because we do have a little bit of a buffer between the presentations and the poster and the lightning talk. So I think we'll hold the questions until after the second presentation, if you wouldn't mind, Shalini and Nicole. But thank you so much. Something that people are still thinking about before asking a question. But I would love to circle back to Shalini because we do have some questions for their first presentation, but I wanted to keep us on track. And actually, one of the questions was actually from the break prior to the presentation. So it really talked a lot about ethical, right? Ethical considerations. And I thought that Shalini's and Nicole's presentation really had so much meat around ethical things. And so I think a couple of the things were, what were some of the ethical considerations that you feel seem to resonate the most with students? Because you had such a great list there, and some of the things, I hadn't even considered, such as that ghost work that you mentioned. Mm-hmm. And so I thought, were there any ones that really seemed to pique the students' interest more than others?
Well, based on our survey, there were some things that they were more aware of or were immediately obvious, like copyright, academic, dishonesty, like immediate concerns like that. So I think, it was kind of an eye-opener for them when we talked about ghost work, when we talked about environment, for instance. I mean, that's
some things
since it was on Zoom, there wasn't a lot of back and forth in terms of discussion with the students. But based on our pre and post, we feel like all of the ethical aspects need to be addressed, because some are not visible or well known. So giving them the whole package, how they absorbed it, we don't quite know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Would you be able to share your pre and post session surveys?
Actually, so yeah, we have a lib guide, lib guide. I can drop the link to that here.
That would be great.
Yeah. And that includes our presentation slides, our, the prompt that we used for the workshop
Fabulous.
as well. So that, yeah, because that was, I think, another question.
Yes.
Yeah. So.
And there was also a question about if you could share some of the prompts that worked well. Because I know you had the whole section on prompt engineering. So I'm not sure. I think that came from
Right.
Esther. I wasn't really sure on the context of that, if Esther meant the prompts that students were putting together that worked well or something else. So I'm not
So
sure.
yeah, we used one prompt only, and we gave them the prompt. So it was
Yeah, so
you
Esther
are
said any that would work well would be interesting.
yeah, so any can work well, and you just have to. So the one we used was, you're a high school student interested in pursuing computer science. You want to understand the key principles of natural language processing. So how would you query ChatGPT?
Okay, thank you. So I think we're at time, although I'm East Coast and for a couple of days I've been trying to do the math. And so, but I do think that we are at our break, providing some additional time, last minute check to go out to the posters, also to fill out the feedback survey. And if you want to just stay on and talk with either our great presenters that I want to thank again, for this our last group of the longer presentations. If you want to stay on and have some discussion with each other, it seemed like was really working well. So we will reconvene at 12:40.